Hello, it is Friday the 5th of July and it's also tonight a new moon, which is quite often a little bit of a turning point for Bitcoin and crypto markets. However, if you're not into the mystical juju, let's take a look at the real charts and show you what I mean. So here we are in spot Bitcoin. And when we looked at this chart yesterday, we were looking at this 200-day, this is a daily chart, and we were looking at this 200-day moving average in the bottom of this sideways range that we have been in to see if it would hold a support. And I was thinking this maybe starts into a kind of a triangle pattern if we did not make a new low. However, we did make a new low, but what's quite interesting about this is this has now turned into a little bit of a false breakdown and a candlestick with a really, really long tail. That's pretty bullish normally, and it usually points to, well, at least just buyers off the lows. And it's quite an interesting level because yesterday when we looked at this and we said if we made a new low, a false breakdown down to this equal measured move level, which is where the swing from the high in March to the low in May was equal to the swing from the high in June to this low, that would be pretty bullish because corrections tend to make quite often equal measured moves like this. And so this is a really cool level to be bouncing from. Now, we've done this before. We've been back, we've been underneath the daily 200 moving average, and once we get underneath it, it can be a little bit of resistance. So I'm not going to get super excited that we're going up again. We may take a little bit of time to be building a base here, but we can definitely say that back above this 200-day moving average, more than halfway up on this really nasty down candle that we saw yesterday, would point to more upside. It would point to back to 61,200, and potentially, if we're drawing this as a little bit of a bullish flag, we could do this as a little bit of a parallel channel here. Here's our little bit of a parallel channel. If we start to get above here, we can talk about potentially back to the top of this channel. The problem is, as I pointed out before, because we're in a wave 4, quite often that makes a 5-wave pattern. So it wouldn't be a surprise, if we did this like this and then, another swing lower in this channel. So again, we're at 150, we're 75 days post halving. Most of the chop post previous halvings has been about 150 days. So we are not necessarily out of this, but this is a really kind of good level and a good position to look at this. Now, for me, on a lower time frame, very often what you want to see, like for example, let's go down to this hourly chart. What you want to see is here, if this is a low, we want to see a pullback and a higher low. I really like high Kanashi candles for pullbacks. If it's really good symbol based on moving averages of when we're going up again, just going from red to green. So in this position, a higher low, a double bottom, any kind of bottoming pattern here, or I think it's quite interesting for buying on pullbacks. There is a possibility we just keep going higher from here, because I've never seen, quite honestly, the sentiment as bearish as it was yesterday, with really nothing driving it. Everybody's like, oh, the Mt. Gox sellers and the German government are selling all the Bitcoin, and the world is ending, Bitcoin's going to go down to ever, and people are talking about 25,000 and stuff, which is nutty, really. So here we are, we've bounced from this level. Now, if you really didn't like this shakeout, and we get a bounce back to this clear resistance level, which is at 58,500, that's a good place to get at, rather than down here at 54,000. However, if we pause here and have a little bit of a pullback, or an inverted head and shoulders pattern is also pretty interesting, and a pretty nice, reliable bottoming pattern to look out for here. So that's what I'm going to be looking for in Bitcoin over this weekend, to see if we see more upside. Have we seen very similar patterns in other markets? For example, Ethereum. Remember, we were looking at ETH to see if it would hold this 200-day moving average. It didn't. We dropped underneath it, but we dropped down to these previous lows, which was pretty cool. I'm a little bit concerned in ETH though, with this equal measured move. unless we get above 3,150, unless we get above this 200-day moving average as well, there is a little bit of the risk that this is just a bounce and we keep going lower and we do that equal measured move thing that Bitcoin did. But what's the alternative? Well, what we were thinking about yesterday for Bitcoin was, well, maybe this makes a kind of triangle here. It wouldn't be crazy for ETH to do that either. So I think we can say, well, if we get back above this 200-day moving average, and then I think we can talk about more upside, and then we would have a lower high and a higher low. So the classic example of nesting, and because of the position that this is in ETH, so if I scroll out, I think this is potentially a big wave 4, we could end up doing that 5-wave pattern here in ETH, so we could end up with something like this. But for now, we're looking to see at this long tail to see if we can get back above 3,100 in ETH, and then potentially then we can talk about more upside, or we're looking for a lower time frame bottoming pattern, higher low, and so on. So looking pretty interesting. The one chart that I think that maybe has more downside. So if we look at the chart total market, so this chart on TradingView is total 3. It's the total market cap of crypto excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's all the alts except ETH and Bitcoin. And in this chart, I also think that we're in a pretty interesting kind of wave 4 position. So we go back to the low in December 2022, we go 1, 2, big wave 3 that subdivides into 5 waves. That's very nice. We have made a lovely 3-wave correction. We pull back to these weekly moving averages, looking pretty good here, don't you think? I think it looks pretty good. My only concern with this is, as you know, again, let's look at it on the daily. I look at equal measured moves. So if I measure from this high to the low, like this, and I'm looking for this to be roughly equal, it isn't. Look, we attempted a bounce at this 61.8 level, and now we're underneath it. So for me, in the terms of the alt market, whilst I think it looks pretty bullish for, Bitcoin and ETH to potentially bounce from here, this market, I think, is pointing to potentially this is a bounce and we still have a little bit more downside in altcoins. And potentially, if we go back to the weekly, back down to around this 487, this previous swing low, that's very normal. Look, when you have a 5-wave move, the previous swing low, the wave 4 previous swing low, and the 200 moving average here at 487, that would be kind of quite a normal place to bounce from. Now, because these markets, don't go in straight lines, and this is not traded as such on its own, I think that technical analysis is a little bit tougher on it. But so let's say back above these previous swing lows and back above 574, I think, yeah, perhaps we are going to have a recovery in altcoins. For now, this is just a bounce then. Okay, if there's anything you're looking at, because, not everything goes down together, let me know. And enjoy.